So hi everyone, I'm Mr. Frank. I teach environmental science in the high school, and this year I have a couple of sections of 7th grade, and I'm glad to be part of the middle school.
And I'm Miss Delgado. I teach 8th grade science, and I am one of the middle school deans.
And I'm Miss Crandall, and I also teach 8th grade science matters and science investigations.
And I am Miss Mason, and I teach the Science of You 7th grade with Mr. Frank.
And so we're together today just to talk a little bit about what we're contending with in this sort of unprecedented time in our history. What have you seen in terms of possible positive changes to the environment as a result of everyone sort of going inside?
I think really early on, there was a very clear noticeable difference in the air quality in certain parts of our world. The water quality has improved, and I feel like that was really such a drastic change in such a very short amount of time. And there were a number of articles that had come out about the amount of carbon emissions that were being in the air, and how there was such a big reduction very early on, just because we all stayed home.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I remember early on, especially, there were a lot of sort of anecdotal stories about, animals coming out more in places where you didn't typically see them. I saw some story, it was somewhere in Europe, where there were these random goats just hanging out in the middle of this village that don't usually do it. And it was because everyone was home and there weren't any cars on the street. So the animals felt like they could come out and rove a little bit more, I guess.
And there you could see pictures of Venice and the canals, and how, because their tourism has significantly gone down, the canal water is clear.
Yeah, that was super dramatic. It was just within a week and it was so clear you could see fish. There was another one that I saw. So I used to live in Hawaii, and one of my favorite places to go is Hanauma Bay on Oahu. And it's a very, very popular tourist spot. Tons and tons of tourists go there every day. And it's been closed since March. Nobody's been allowed to go there. And so one of the things they've been studying is how much cleaner the water has gotten so quickly. It's a huge improvement.
Yeah, the prompt could almost be like, right, what is the earth telling us in this time? What is the message that we're getting from, everyone being inside? And I definitely, remember back in March and April reading story after story about, birds making, returning to their breeding grounds in higher numbers, pretty dramatic decreases in particulate matter in the global atmosphere, but certainly regionally, right? Pictures of, parts of China where air quality is normally really not very good. And then, in a period of 3 or 4 weeks, just dramatic improvements.
Which has also been good, like, for the health of people, because a lot of people, I think it's like 7 or 8 million people die of poor air quality. So it did help for a significant amount of people during that time.
So as science teachers in the middle school, what do we think about sort of where we're at right now, and what the earth is telling us about, kind of the big picture of how do we respond to this? And
I think this is a really great opportunity to kind of shift the way we do things. So instead of relying on fossil fuels and, coal, to shift into renewable energy resources. Our lives have really dramatically changed. And I think there have been benefits to the environment. In order for those benefits to the environment to continue, we need to have renewable resources, and also, just the way that we consume a lot of animal products. A reduction in consuming animal products would also be a good adjustment we could make.
Yeah, the projections, I think that's one thing that was kind of exciting. I mean, the initial projections were that we could be reducing carbon by like 17%, and then now we've sort of reopened the economy globally, so maybe the numbers aren't as dramatic. I think it's like 5% currently is kind of or I guess, some studies show what, a 4 to 7% reduction, but that's like unprecedented. Like, we've never reduced our emissions by, even 3%. So, you know, anything 4 to 7% is pretty remarkable.
In a really short amount of time.
Yeah, a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not without, right, obviously a lot of economic hardship, but
Sure.
you know, it feels like, right, a big opportunity in terms of like, this could be peak carbon. We could possibly choose collectively to, you know, have this be the point at which, you know, we start reducing our emissions year after year.
I do feel like it's been, you know, it's been hard on everybody. It's been hard, especially in the education realm. It's been hard on teachers. It's been really hard on students, and parents as well. So I am eagerly awaiting the opportunity to go back to school and be in person in teaching. However, I feel like it's been a real eye-opening experience for other industries where you're realizing that maybe not having to commute to work is a necessity. And, you know, like my sister works for a pretty big company and she only goes into work once a week, and the productivity level within her team has not changed at all. And I think that's something that we can really think about, and about how necessary it is for us to get into our cars, be on the road, you know, 2 hours a day, and how beneficial that actually is, you know, to the population.
Yeah. One of the things I remember thinking about a month into this was I kind of had this moment where I realized, oh, there is this huge silver lining. I've been kind of wishing for several years that my life were simpler than it is. And this pandemic has simplified my life, not necessarily in the ways that I would have chosen, but to kind of look at that and go, oh, you know, it has in some ways given me more time, and it's forced me to use my time differently. And I think as individuals, we're all going through that, right? Like we're realizing, we're reevaluating how we're spending our time, what makes us happy. And what my wish is that on a larger scale, that society and governments and industries will come to some new understandings, you know, like, or you know, take this opportunity to reevaluate, you know, how can we do things differently so that we can have a more sustainable future for the next generations. That's what I hope.
But like, you know, one thing from the past that has really been successful is that all the countries came together, the world came together talking about the ozone layer, and then they outlawed the aerosols.
Yep.
And since 1987, there's been a dramatic improvement in the ozone layer because everybody decided to come together. They were going to have certain regulations, and they did it, and it was successful. So I think like this is another opportunity to work together and to really change what our future is going to look like.
Yeah, and I think, you know, some of the positive environmental benefits that we've seen, even in just this short amount of time, I would hope that people take that as inspiration, that, you know, like, hey, let's double down and actually make some of these changes as a society, because the earth will respond in a positive way. I feel like the earth is speaking in a way, saying, you know, just give us a little bit of a break, give me a little bit of a break,